Push and pull. Still feeling fresh from bathing, Arya watched Saphira stretching her wings by the water through the kitchen window. The morning was still new, and the light was just a faded luminosity beaming on the surface of the river. The big blue dragon finished her exercises and rested. Arya went to meet her outside with a cup of tea in hands. Greetings, Saphira. Good morning, Arya. Did you rest well? Arya could perceive a bit of mirth in her voice. Well enough, thank you for asking. Her ears could be less warm, but she ignored it. In fact, the effects of having too much wine the night before were not as taxing as the implications of the kind of intimacy she had shared with Eragon in the corners of his mind. She felt exposed and fragile, but knowing of his own fragility as well was somehow empowering. You're welcome. Her amusement was very evident now. Arya tried to ignore it once again. Saphira, she called and went to sit by the water on a big flat boulder, adjusting her loose and regal gown around herself. We didn't have a good chance to talk about, well, anything for a long time. I want you to know that I value your opinion more than anyone else's, more than Eragon's. Arya smiled mischievously. On most subjects. No, on all subjects. They laughed together until Saphira sat on her hind legs and looked ahead at the river. Are you trying to ask me if I approve of your relationship with Eragon? The warmth on Arya's ears increased, but she decided it wasn't time to be a coward. Do you? Saphira silenced so briefly but so tortuously long that Arya wished to shake her tail to make her speak. At first I didn't. When Eragon was a boy acting like a fool, pining over you. In my opinion, you were only going to hurt him, and I was right. I knew it, he knew it, you knew it. The soles of his boots knew it. Arya feared the judgment of the dragon, but tried to defend herself even if it was a weak attempt. I warned him. Saphira turned her head to throw her a glance. Oh, it was not your fault. Of course not. How can we have control over other people's feelings when it's so hard to tame our own? The truth in that was so primal that Arya couldn't help agreeing with her. What about now? Saphira lowered her body in a way that it seemed to Arya that she was going to lie down, but it was only so she could position her giant sapphire eye in front of Arya's face. Now it's a different kind of hurt, isn't it? She touched Arya's forehead very delicately with her snout, like a mother dragon would. Shouldn't we be together? Arya felt tenderness pouring from their link, and suddenly comprehension hit her. What would be of all lovers if they would give up in the face of hurt? The world would have already seen doom by now. Eragon was right when he said they would be changed in the next time she met them. Saphira was wiser beyond words, for they could not hold all the meaning she intended them to. But she understood it all. Arya understood Saphira wouldn't advise Eragon to stay away from her. Arya raised her left hand and stroked Saphira's brow, and the dragon hummed low. If it's my blessing you're seeking, you have it already. You and nobody else. Arya felt tears coming to her eyes. Thank you, Saphira. You're welcome. No hidden meanings the time. Arya took a sip of her tea. It was good to share the company of trusted friends again. She missed being relaxed with her words and actions, not worrying with what might be used against her on the next strategic political play. She would receive the occasional visit of the riders, but they saw her as a mentor, not an equal, so she couldn't feel relaxed with them either. Deathada was once a close friend, and still was, but she treaded with cautious around him lately, knowing well what side he would be on if he disagreed with her about a choice or another. Avelina was the one who offered her comfort those days with her surprise visits and bright smiles. She would drag Rhaenyra along, and him too had become a friend. Arya understood why Eragon liked him, although she couldn't see the entirety of the reason of why he had given Brisinga to the elf yet. Maybe one day sooner or later it would make sense to her. Or maybe it would always be a grudge. I can see the worms burrowing inside this head of yours. Arya smiled. Funny saying. It's been a while since I've last heard it. It's because you elves do it all the time, so there's no one to perceive it as being odd among your people. Or being annoying too. Saphira used a light tone. Arya couldn't take it as an offense. You are right. We live inside our heads too much. Yes, you do. One thing I learned by being bonded to a human rider. If they see a worm burrowing in someone's head, they make their life's mission to capture said worm and find out everything about it. Or at least my human does it. Arya laughed. She knew the feeling. I think it's common to humanity. Avelina does it as well with endless interrogations. And also Elva, but she uses her powers instead of words. Humph, Saphira bared her teeth. Now who has worms in her head? That girl puts worms in everyone's heads, doesn't she? Arya couldn't agree more. Elva didn't inspire much trust, despite having played a big part in the war when she was so little. But the truth was that she had never acted as an honorable person, and every good thing she had ever done was to gain something in return. Eragon had learned how to negotiate with her, but Arya was against it, and if it came to it one day, she wouldn't hesitate to put the edge of her sword on the strange woman's throat. And Elva knew it well. Neither of them was afraid of the other, but they were united by the commitment of keeping each other alive. It sufficed for now. Saphira, do you imagine yourself being away from the fight? If Saphira was taken aback by the sudden change in the subject, she didn't show. Instead, she rested more comfortably on her belly. I'm already away, am I not? We are not fighting yet. If Eragon and I were still in Alagaesia, I'm sure we would have found a fight to put ourselves in by now. It's a talent we have, she laughed. Her belly rumbled with humor. Arya took another sip of her tea. She didn't know how to approach this without sounding like a critic. She admired Saphira and wanted to be kept in her good graces. She chose flattery. It's because you two are good at it. It's a shame you retired from it. Especially you, Saphira. Saphira took the compliment well, bowing her head. I can go whenever I wish to go, since I'm not bound to any oath like the riders are. Neither do I have the reluctance in dirtying my claws in blood again. It's only natural to me, being the sky hunter that I am. But even if I could ignore my bond with Eragon to fly west, I wouldn't. I created a mission for me here. That is only mine. I'm an individual here, not just his dragon. I'm a teacher, a mentor. I go to the dragon lair by myself, because no one else can go. There are chores in the mountain that Eragon or the elves don't even take part in, because they're only mine to do. Who am I in Alagaesia, Arya? How do they call me there? Arya creased her forehead. She had never thought of Saphira that way, as someone who could question her own value in the world, because for her Saphira had an immense value, no question about it. But she was right. In Alagaesia, Saphira was often portrayed as the mighty warrior's ride, not the warrior herself, a being without want or rationality. Those who have seen her fight could describe her as a feral beast, but would never testify to her personality or wit. People like Jowd that knew the truth battled to describe her as she really was, but still she wasn't an independent character in the West, and it wasn't fair. Whatever the title they used to call you, Saphira, I'm sure it's not fair. No, it's not. Saphira stretched her neck and sniffed the morning air just as Fernan moved in the shelter. Arya could feel his dreams becoming more lucid with the approach of his awakening time. You know what, Arya? There's no shame in not recognizing the place we were born in as our home. I, for instance, look back at the Palancar Valley with fondness, but it's no home for me. Alagaesia stayed in the past. This is home now. Involuntarily, Arya looked back at the treehouse. The vines hid most of its features, but it was clearly a well-built house with door and windows. It was all for her. No one had never slept on her bed or dined at her table. No one had sat by the fire in a cold day with a book in hands, dreaming of fantastic adventures. She longed for the day she would call that place home at the same measure she dreaded it. Her current home was an inherited palace, passed from generation to generation for many centuries. It made her proud of her lineage, for it told their glorious history. Still, Eragon saw right through it and noticed how she would have shaped herself to fit that place. He went the other way around and crafted the treehouse to fit her. Now, she feared the day she would call the treehouse her home and miss it until her heart felt like beating outside her chest. I'm glad you found your place, Saphira, even if it means that you won't be coming back to us. It seems complete happiness is a frivolous idea after all. She nodded her giant head, but the future is uncertain. My eggs are yet to hatch to their riders. They will spend a lot of time here, but after that, I may want to accompany them in their quests. Eragon may be free to go as well. So who knows, I wouldn't go back now, but I won't close that door forever. What do you mean, he may be free to go? Well, his current duty holds him here, but if he has a different one in the future that tells him to move, then I guess we'll move. Arya always had the impression that Eragon was decided to settle in Mount Anga forever, so the possibility of him moving back was confusing but also exciting. My dear, Fernan's deep voice echoed in her mind, which, if it happens, it may take many, many years. Besides, Eragon and Saphira won't live with us. You know how problematic it could be. It's just a possibility, Fernan. I'm not getting my hopes up, but it's better than an immutable situation. He left the shelter and walked slowly toward the pair. I don't want you to get hurt. He worried about her, but she could feel his own hurt. Listen to your mate. She has a thing or two to teach you about the pains of love. As soon as he approached them, Arya reached his neck and scratched the soft spot under his jaw as he lowered his head. I believe you have a meeting with my rider, Arya. He's already waiting for you in the garden. I will see you later, Arya Drurtning. Arya stood up and pressed 2 fingers on her lips before saying, See you later, Saphira Brightscales. And thank you for our conversation. Saphira blinked slowly and tipped her head to Arya. Eragon was watering the flowers around the little square when Arya found him. She could tell he was anxious for the way he couldn't keep from adjusting what was already perfect. He spoke first, without turning to see her. It's time to work on the next season blooms. I brought the seeds Oswald sold to me yesterday. If we don't do it now, we'll miss the window. It can wait. Arya was carrying a package she brought with her from Elismera especially for him. It was a present not as impressive as the ones he's given her, but she hoped it would leave a mark. I want to give you something. Come see. For the first time, Eragon turned to look at her. She walked toward him and handed him the package. It was a leather wrapping for a new sword. He could tell. His brows creased, and she feared he would refuse the gift. I know you don't want to fight anymore and all that. But after you relinquished Brissinger to Rainier, I couldn't accept that you remained without a proper sword. This is not a rider sword, but it's second best, forged by the same blacksmith that made my first sword. You remember how great it was, he nodded, but didn't display any trace of excitement. She continued, This is even greater. The artisan lit up when I told him whom it was for. She smiled kindly and caressed his face. I took a chance, knowing you would most likely loathe it, or at least the idea of it. But I need to know you have a good weapon at hand for your safety. I wouldn't bear to. Her quiet distress was the ultimate incentive he needed, it seemed, for he dropped the watering can and unstrapped the package to open the leather flaps and reveal the light-colored metal of the sheath. Eragon left the package on the floor, and suddenly, Arya watched as he transformed from a hesitant to an amazed man. Her fears were gone. He loved it. First, he felt how the hilt fit in his hands to perfection. He tried holding it single-handed, then with both hands. He looked at her in surprise. He measured the blade and realized it was proportional to his arms and shoulders. How did you get my measurements right? Who else would? I know you well, don't I? She said provokingly. He opened his mouth to answer, clearly in shock, but she laughed and added, I asked Rainier to come along and offer Brissinger as a model. It's a good thing he didn't go to Runon to get it reshaped. We're practically the same size, he shrugged, so I figured. How convenient, don't you think? Go on, give it a try. Eragon unsheathed the blade, and Arya saw him gasp as she thought he would. Like little vines, the steel was decorated with intertwined lines that gleamed depending on the light. When the artisan proposed that kind of decoration, Arya frowned and Rhaenyra scoffed. They both agreed it was a superfluous feature, that all Eragon needed was a strong and efficient blade, appearances aside. Just make it to his proportions and make sure it won't break. That's all he needs. Rhaenyra stated with a rudeness that Arya wouldn't advise he would use with someone so old and wise as the blacksmith. The old elf, however, was a joyful creature. He danced around his shop and grabbed a metal stick. Dancing back to Rhaenyra, he wrapped it in a dirty cloth and said with a gleaming smile, "If it's just anything you need, then here, take this to your master." Being the brilliant man he is, he will know how to use it to perfection instead of a proper sword. But how will you feel to present something less than extraordinary to the man that gave you what no one else could? The artisan tapped on Rhaenyra's forehead. "If you think it's a fair trade, here. Take it," and pushed the wrap to the rider's chest without ever losing his smile and apparent kindness. Arya let out a little laugh that was followed by the man's own melodious giggle. "Don't mind him, my lord. It's my gift to the Shadeslayer. I want what's best for him." At that the elf bowed his head to his queen and smiled genuinely. "But my concerns are that the aesthetics are too much. Eragon is a creative and artistic man, and although it can reverberate on the battlefield with his elaborate fight moves that only he can do, his style can be messy." The artisan almost squealed with excitement, with his beaming eyes and high-pitched laugh. Rhaenyra rolled his eyes to scene. He grabbed Brisinga's hilt and leaned against one of the pillars on the patio behind the old elf's workshop where Arya went to sit with the elf. "Yes, your majesty. Tell me about him. The more you say, bigger the chances he will like it." And so she described to the best of her abilities how was the way Eragon used to fight. The man smiled even wider with each information. After she finished, he asked how he grabbed the fork to eat and the pen to write. Even if he had a favorite flower or color. He asked how he smelled like, the sound of his voice, the size of feet. With each question, Arya noticed how much she knew about Eragon and how protective she was about it. She started to hide the answers that no one except her would know, and only reveal what was easily perceived through simple observation. She threw a glance toward Rhaenyra, who tipped his head and smirked in an accomplice way. The result to their extensive study of Eragon's personality was a sober steel sword, platinum-colored. In fact, the blacksmith added platinum to the alloy, chanting the entire time the spells to give it strength and malleability. Arya watched as he so patiently, and never stopping his spells, engraved the thin lines along the flat part of the blade. It shined with maleficent hunger. A morbid thought crossed my head right now. Eragon twirled the sword in his hand. These marks will look like veins full of blood after an enemy or two. His expression was bitter, but somehow fierce too, like a craving. Arya had the impression that sometimes she would have that he knew more than he let it show. It was an ick inside her head, too far for her to scratch. Eragon attached the sheath to his belt, decorated with the emerald vance, had filled with energy, and kept swirling the sword in his right hand. Then he grabbed it with both hands and performed a few standard attack moves. He smiled afterward. Arya knew about the present Rhaenyra Vance and Rilvan had given to Eragon years before, so he didn't need another gem on his belt. She asked the artisan to craft the pommel and the cross guard as he pleased, but without any gems. It would be too much. He delivered a sober work, without any more decorations. Still, it was impressive, solid, strong. I see you liked it. Arya let out a heavy breath to see how his moves flowed well and how he enjoyed his new weapon. It's perfect. Thank you, she tipped her head. Then she grabbed the wrapping from the floor and folded it, while he sheathed the sword and held his belt. They stared at each other in silence for a minute. Eragon sighed. I should apologize for last night, he began. Of all the things she thought he would say, apologizing was the last one. I don't understand, she frowned. I exposed us to the outside threats. While we were, he looked away and she saw his cheeks blushing. While we were distracted, we were vulnerable. At that distance, anyone could have attacked us with ill intentions. I'm sorry. She knew they were vulnerable and that they needed to stop and untangle their minds, but her self-control was severely diminished by many factors as well. It wasn't just his fault. You don't have to apologize. I was also the one to blame. At some point I came to sobriety and could have stopped it, but didn't. I wasn't that drunk. You weren't sober either. What I mean is, it doesn't matter. I was aware. And didn't stop. He breathed heavily and ran his hand through his hair to try to recollect himself. Arya, we almost, if you hadn't called my name that way. I'm sure we would have gone all the way. Arya understood then. He was worried with the level of the intimacy they had reached the night before. Or better yet, the level of intimacy they could have reached the night before. It was a dream, Eragon. It wasn't real. Just because it is inside the mind, it doesn't mean it isn't real. You know it well, she knew. Of course she knew. That's not what I meant. Eragon stepped closer, and Arya could see he was apprehensive. She then remembered that he was at a loss when it came to interactions like that, since he had never lived something like it in his life. What did you mean, then? Arya, I have lived 1,000 lives inside my head through the Eldenari. I've been men and women, elves and humans, dragons. I've lived many things. Did you know there was a rider that had 17 wives throughout his very long life? And some of them were even simultaneous. They knew about each other. She laughed, which made him keep going with his narrative with more enthusiasm. I lived the life of a female rider that loved the same man for centuries without seeing him again, because he had gone to the war and vanished. I cried the whole night after seeing that through her dragon. But then I also lived happy lives with happy stories. I had children, I gave birth. They laughed together again. And there were some intense stories too. He lowered his voice, and she saw his cheeks blushing one more time. Keep going. I've seen it all, Arya. Riders that preferred to have other riders as mates, for life or for one night. Just one at a time, or more than one at once. Arya's own modesty was being provoked. Some riders that preferred the company of other riders of same the sex, and some even that didn't want anyone's company at all. I lived it all. I felt it all. Still, what I felt last night with you can't compare to any of that. He motioned with his hand as he was trying to put the memories aside. Do you understand? Did she? What was the difference? It all happened inside his head. What was the magnifier factor? Would it have been so bad if we kept going? She asked, hoping he would redeem them both from their sin. She wanted to save their moment from being marked as a mistake, because for her, it felt as a start of something good. Bittersweet, it's true, but essentially good. Again, he ran his hand through his hair, obviously nervous. I don't know. I mean, that's how we met. It was a horrible situation, but still, we met through our dreams. It would make sense that out intimacy would happen that way, but still, it's lacking. Exactly. They both sighed and stared at each other. If there were two people that were so right for each other, yet so terribly cornered by their own choices, Arya couldn't tell. Maybe Eragon would know, after inspecting so many love affairs through the centuries. Fernan. Yes, darling. A little help here, please. His humor was evident, but it didn't bother her. Be honest. And tender. Is that all? It's all you need. He silenced, but she felt him in the depths of her mind. That's why I'm still frustrated with you. He frowned. I contacted you last night because you made me a house so far away, and though I couldn't love it more, I felt lonely in it without your company. I want to be close. Our interaction last night wasn't close enough for you. It wasn't a question. She shook her head and approached him until they were inches away. And that's how I feel. I'm being honest. I was trying to give you your own space, he whispered, and she could feel his earthy breath on her face. You gave me many miles and 10 years each time. It's enough, don't you think? She failed at being tender as it came out as a critic for his departure from Alagasia. Still, she was being honest. He agreed with a nod, and his voice came within a grunt before he pulled her to himself. It's too much. His right arm went over her neck, and he pulled her head to rest against his face. It was almost a forceful hug, but she understood he was too emotional and conflicted to protest against his rudeness. So she held him by the waist and let herself be cradled, the leather wrapping fallen to the ground. He shifted his head so his face was buried in her neck, and soon his breathing on her skin was making her shiver slightly as she was being taken back to last night's memories. Eragon, she called. If you were worried about where we were heading last night, then you should stop doing that. It will lead us the same way. Doing what? His voice was muffled and his breath assaulted her skin, causing another shiver. She gasped. That, Arya said, winded. He didn't say anything else. He moved his arms to her waist without facing away. She could feel the roughness of his face on the softness of her neck. He placed there only one slow kiss that made her close her eyes and claw his scalp. Then he moved away completely like nothing had happened, almost unaltered if it weren't for his messy hair. He smirked to see her shaken before his action. She damned the day he had learned how to play her, whenever it had been. When they communicated through the mirrors, it was easier to divert her gaze and pretend he wasn't affecting her, but being so close she saw herself cornered. Eragon seemed quite satisfied to have assumed control of their little interaction, but Arya didn't like to lose the higher ground. He knew it well. No, she wouldn't be cornered so easily. She strode toward him, wearing her fierce mask. In one move, she yanked his sword out of his belt, letting it fall on the grass, and with the other one she pushed him toward the bench, where he hit the back of his knees and fell sitting. She straddled him and placed her hands on his chest to steady herself. He was clearly surprised, and now the satisfaction was entirely hers. Well, not entirely. Arya went in for a kiss, slow first, but it turned fiery very soon, and her hips couldn't help but pushing forward. She could tell he was trying his best not to turn it around by the way he was holding back from actively touching her or pushing back, but she wouldn't let him if he tried, and she was strong enough to stop him. She loved their little competition, and she knew he enjoyed it either. At the same time, her hands glided to his back and traced his muscles with her fingernails. His palms finally caved in and felt her thighs in details from her knees up. She enjoyed the contact and let him know that by pulling the cloth of her gown upward so he could access her honey skin. They both enjoyed the contact of his hands on her skin intensely for the brief moment it lasted, because soon he removed his hands and let her dress fall back into place. Eragon jerked his head back to stare at her eyes. Arya understood what he was trying to say with his look. She inhaled deeply and kissed him delicately. You need me to say it, don't you? If you keep breaking barriers by the second, then you have to rid me from my promise. Isn't this enough? She signaled to their position on the bench. His expression said it all. No, it wasn't. You have to say, or I can't move forward. I cannot rid you from your promise yet. He shook his head in exasperation. It's not fair that I have your body if I can't ask for more, she frowned. How absurd was that? They were taking huge steps, bigger than she had ever thought they would. If she was asked 20 years before about the possibility of be sitting on his lap in the gardens of the house he built for her, she would not only laugh, but have that person taken to see a healer, for they would be severely ill. But still, he wanted more. Why do you humans always want more? Her voice was annoyed. It keeps us alive. A sigh came out of her lips, and she looked away above his ear. What is it that you want? She felt as his hand traveled to her chin to make her look at him again. When she did, she saw the tenderness Fernan advised her to have, but she failed. She also saw relief and realized he was waiting for her to ask, or he wouldn't be able to say it himself due to the promise. Commitment. Arya couldn't stay. Eragon couldn't go. Despite that, she wasn't thinking of taking anyone else as her mate, being him a casual one or a permanent companion. It was strange that he asked that of her. It was like he didn't know how she felt about him, or he didn't trust she would only want to be with him. I don't understand. I told you how I lived all those lives. From all those stories, the happy ones had one factor in common: commitment. They all had love and passion, but commitment is what it takes to keep us going through the years, despite the adversities. Arya, once I was a boy, and I dreamed of a wife and children of my own. But that's not what I want anymore. The kind of commitment I want I can't ask of you, because you won't let me. Arya wasn't sure anymore if she was ready to share full intimacy with him, since it meant the demand of committing to him completely. She knew she wanted him, but so far they had their fun discovering each other without the pressure of it being a full commitment. For elves, who could engage with each other in all seriousness, and it would last only a day or a millennium, the concept of relationships was very fluid and subjective. It was what the individual wanted it to be. But humans had too many rules and impediments. For Eragon, she didn't even know what that would mean, and to find out she would have to grant him a way out of his promise. In the night before, she had stopped their interaction only because she suddenly felt mentally overwhelmed. She could have gone all the way, though, if he was someone else, and the commitment only lasted for that moment. But with him, every little step could mean a dramatic turn in their relationship. The clear example would be the literal step she took toward him and Helena during the feast. Luckily, it was stopped by Avelina, but what if it were not? What if she had done it? People would know about them, the word would reach her counselors, and the opposition would make their moves. Hopefully political ones, but it could be blades in the night, magical traps, ancient spells. Elva's powers would be tested to its limits. When she would say over and over how Eragon was too important for a Lagasia, Arya herself didn't quite know the full meaning of it, but it still surprised her to know that she was of a huge importance as well. There were two thunderstorms about to clash over the ocean. His brown, tender eyes shined with expectancy. It gave her butterflies in her stomach. If it was someone else, she would have gone all the way. What was her thinking? She wouldn't. How could she think something like that? Arya didn't want anyone else. She didn't consider having anyone else since Fairlin, and even her desire toward Eragon was new and overwhelming. There were times that she didn't feel like herself, such as the night before, or when he would make a comment about someone new in anger, and her heart would fill with rage and jealousy. That wasn't Arya. It couldn't be. Or at least it was what she would tell herself when trying to calm herself, but she knew well that it was. And somehow, the prophecy read by Angela 10 years before started to fall into place when she had said that Arya was many women in one. She felt exactly like that sometimes. If that was the meaning the herbalist intended with her readings, she didn't know, but it made sense to her somehow. Arya brought her hands to cup his face. I feel that if I rid you from the promise, I will be taking a step bigger than my legs can take. His sad eyes broke her heart. It's a good thing I can't ask then, he said, and lowered his head until his face was hidden against her chest. No, Eragon, don't do this. She tried to bring his head up again, but he stayed as he was. I want you to come live with me here this month. Isn't that enough for now? It took him a minute to raise his head again. If you're afraid of what people will think, then it's impossible. Arya stood up and fixed her gown. It seemed he was trading with her, frustrating her wishes just because she frustrated his. You don't know what you ask of me, Eragon. If he knew he was risking her life by exposing their relationship like that, he would rethink the house and the garden. But she didn't want to make him feel guilty. Then tell me. He placed his elbows on his thighs, leaning forward. I can't we agreed on? Aye, aye. Your royal duty. I know. But the thing is, Arya, you were so mad that I gave Brissinger to Rainier when you don't even know all the reasons why I've done it. One of them is that one day I'm free to come to you, since I don't see you abdicating your crown anytime soon, nor do I wish you to be dethroned." He raised his voice. Arya was confused. After seeing Rainier carrying Brissinger at the opening ceremony ball in Illyra the year before, Arya asked Eragon about it. He said he had many reasons. Some of them weren't even clear to him yet, but mainly it was because he didn't feel right to have such powerful sword collecting dust on his shelf, while Rainier needed a rider sword of his own. His dragon was also blue. Their fighting style was similar for training together all those years, and even their measurements were close. Runon wouldn't have to make any adjustments on the blade. It was perfect, but now he said it was for her. It didn't make sense. "Please explain yourself." Her tone was feral to match his, but he didn't flinch or falter. He stood up as well. Rainier started to study the essence of true names, as you know. She remembered how the young rider had written 2 volumes on the art of conjuring the essence of objects and also hiding your own essence from your enemies. She found it very instructive and helpful, although dangerous. One day, after being intrigued about the fact that Brissinger bursted into flames every time I spoke its name, he started to study its essence and finally discovered its true name. It turns out Brissinger and my own name are a part of it. Luckily, it's the name I had when I helped to craft it, not my current one. He wished to tell me, but I refused. I gave the sword to him as a proof of good faith. If he was proven worthy by me and the others, with time, I would like him to take my place as head rider. It was only logical that someone more powerful and talented would come along and replace me. That's why we do what we do. Arya was shocked. What Saphira said in the morning was coming to full circle. Surely they agreed on telling her that little by little, but still, she wasn't expecting that. "Would you really give up your position as our leader?" "As the leader," he gave a cold laugh. "Easily. I said it 1,000,000 times. I'm a teacher, not a warrior, not an administrator, not a commander. A teacher. My only reservation is the tutelage of the Eldenari. They say they will be all right. They don't need me exactly, that Rainier will do good in the future. But he's not patient enough to sit and wait as they impart their centuries-old wisdom. He will have to improve. In fact, he will have to improve in a lot of areas, or it may never happen. So, it may never happen." He breathed heavily and bit the insides of his cheek. Their ups and downs made her head spin. All she wanted was to stop the words and enjoy time as it passed slowly by the river, feeling his warmth all around her. The complicated parts of their dynamic seemed to take almost all of it, and although she felt like the one to blame for it, right now she blamed the ones that would see their relationship as leverage for a political maneuver. What now? "You won't live with me because you think I'm not committed. You won't let me touch you because you feel trapped by the promise. What's left for us?" Eragon shook his head as she was interpreting it all wrong. He collected his new sword and attached it to his belt. "Now you go finish getting ready for the games." Arya was already wearing the gown she would wear on the formal opening ceremony, but she still needed her shoes, her sword, and her crown. "After that, I will show you that I do let you touch me, and I do think you are committed, just not completely." Once again, he made her knees weak by passing a hand under her hair, all over her back up until her neck, while his lips kissed the corner of her mouth. Something told her that the day would be a long one.